Hello little buns, hello everyone, my name is Steph, welcome back to my home. Today I have this inspired look for you. This is inspired by Obsidian's latest RPG, Avowed. It's come out today on Game Pass, but it's been in early access for a few days for people that pre-ordered the premium version. It is incredible. I have had so much fun. I'm a big RPG fanatic, and I've been waiting for another adventure to sweep me off my feet, to completely enchant me, to grab me and not let me go. And this game is the one. It's the one, y'all. If you're unfamiliar, Obsidian has an incredibly legendary pedigree with RPGs. They're responsible for Fallout New Vegas, one of the most beloved Bethesda games of all time, was developed by Obsidian. Knights of the Old Republic 2, Pillars of Eternity 1 and 2, which are actually the same universe as Avowed, and much more. The Outer Worlds is another recent RPG from them that I also loved. And Avowed takes things from their entire history of incredible RPGs, and it is just a chef's kiss, just incredible. It's got great companions, likable and awesome, really good characters to get to know. It's got incredible side quests. I did one on stream the other day that when I finished doing it with the community on stream, I was like, this is a side quest. Like this, you would think this would be like the finishing arc of an entire act of the game. It was just a side quest. Like there's so much incredible storytelling, so much interesting intrigue, and overall the game features kind of a through line of commentary on colonialism and a lot of really interesting philosophical questions about second chances and regret, but also a sense of self-discovery. The primary character doesn't really fully know who they are in a way. There's elements of themselves that they're just now coming to understand, but there's so many unknowns. There's just so much cool stuff going on. It's got incredible world building. I love it. And I would love it if you would join me on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Stef Sanjati, where I'm live Monday to Friday, 4 hours every day. And I'll be playing through Avowed until I finish it. So come join me on Twitch. I'll be live playing through Avowed. I'm obsessed. I'd love to see you there. It would mean the world to me to have your support. That said, what we're here for today on YouTube is this look. So I was inspired by the Dreamscourge, which is an incredibly important plot point in Avowed. And it is basically, it's an infection that takes over life forms, whether those are plants, animals, humanoids, and it's most represented by this sort of creeping root mycelium network that connects these infected living things, usually plants, but certainly other things that are more dangerous as well. And so I wanted it to look like the Dreamscourge was creeping across my skin. I used a lot of the color palette from the game to inspire this look. Honestly, between my skin and all the colors that I've used, it's the same color palette as the cover art. So I went really in. I'm feeling so inspired by this game. I hope you like the video. Please go ahead and watch with me while I put this look together. Hopefully this is useful to you as a gaming appreciator, as a beauty lover, as somebody that likes art. Like I just want to take my inspirations of gaming and use my skills as a makeup artist to make creative art. All right, that's what I want to do. So I hope you enjoy it. I'm going to walk you through it. You might learn some things. You might find this relaxing. Whatever it is, I hope you enjoy. Thank you for being here. Let's get into it. I am so excited to get into this makeup. I've had so much fun with this game. Let's just dive in. I have a bunch of products today that I've started using a bit differently than I have in the past bunch of videos. So if you've been watching me do my makeup throughout a bunch of different gaming videos recently, I'm gonna do some things different today. I'm excited about that too. Let's get started with some primer. I am using a different primer than I normally am, which is the Power Grip Matte Primer. This is still an e.l.f. Cosmetics primer. It's still the Power Grip series. This one though, the mattifying effect is unbelievable. And as a person with normal to dry skin, I didn't expect to want the mattifying effect, but the way that this helps me show up on camera is incredible. I used to have some issues with, even like an hour after I applied my makeup, just a little bit of shine coming through around my T-zone. Even though it's not oily, it's just like, I don't know, it was bothering me. This has completely brought that down. I absolutely adore it, and it still does a great job holding the makeup on. Either way, there's gonna be a lot going on the skin today for this look, so we wanna make sure we've got a good primed base. Next, I'll be doing color corrector, and that involves my usual green e.l.f. Cosmetics color corrector on the redness of my nose, but I also have this new creaseless corrector from Tarte, and this is a peach corrector similar to the e.l.f. Cosmetics corrector I've been using, but I find that the way it sits on the skin is so gorgeous. I might want to go back and get it in green as well. So again, that's the creaseless corrector from Tarte Cosmetics, and I just use a little bit through the jaw region here, as well as a tiny little bit around my eye in this circular darkness, and a bit at the back as well. And when they say creaseless corrector, I don't know, there's something about the way this sits on the skin. It's unbelievable. If you're unfamiliar with color correcting, the reason I do this is so that my base looks more even in color and tone without me using more of my high coverage products. This color corrector neutralizes the color of like the darkness around my eyes or around my jawline that I don't want, so that I don't have to go in with heavier coverage products instead. It's like a light filter instead of a layer of paint. And then I'll use that little bit of green color corrector on the nose area where I get really red, maybe even a little bit on the center of my cheek where I get flushed. I always use a setting spray after my color corrector so that it stays in place underneath of the foundation that I put on top. We don't want it blending and moving when I'm going on top of it. We want it to stay exactly where I placed it. Traditionally, I've been using an e.l.f. setting spray, but I picked up, it's finally happened, the One Size Until Dawn mattifying waterproof setting spray, and I wasn't sure if this was gonna rock my world the way that I thought it would. I was hopeful and optimistic, and it turns out I was also right. This thing is insane. I cannot sing the praises of this enough. I cannot believe the longevity that this provides, and I will talk about it throughout the video, but we're gonna start just using it for the color corrector. You don't need very much of it either. There we go, we'll wait for that to dry down. For foundation, I'm still using my Il Makiage Woke Up Like This Flawless Base in the shade 035 on a beauty sponge. I'm gonna do 2 pumps, and I'm gonna concentrate that honestly mostly around the cheek area, and I'll bring a little bit of leftover onto the jaw to go on top of that color corrector, but I don't wanna go too heavy with the coverage with this so that we can maintain a really good texture to the skin. The nose can use a little bit extra. I'm doing 1 extra pump, and I'm just blending that down the neck so that we have a consistent skin tone from face towards the chest, since I have so much exposed skin, and I'm going to be working with this skin as well. So I'm going to continue down onto the chest with this. Honestly, at this point, I'm just going to take off the necklace and I'll put it back on towards the end of the look so that we have free reign to work down here. I'm going to take a second to clean off my lips and apply a light moisturizer. This is the e.l.f. Squeeze Me Lip Balm, just for a little bit of hydration so that by the time we get to the lipstick part of the look, my lips will be nice and soft and prepped, not cracked and crusty. This also has a delicious watermelon flavor that I cannot get over. Now we're gonna do a little bit of concealer. This is my Lancome Teint Idole All Over Ultrawear Concealer in the shade Buff N. And I'm gonna use that under the eye, right along this dark circle area, down the sides of the nose a little bit, and also at the back of my eye to create that cheekbone highlight. And I'm gonna blend that with my beauty sponge as well. If you're a regular on my videos, you'll know this is a little bit backwards. Normally I do my cream contour before I do my concealer, but today I'm mixing it up, and lately, can you believe it, I've been doing powder contour again, not cream. I know, like, for some of you that might not sound significant at all, but for me, huge deal, huge deal. Now that we've got our concealer on, we are actually done with this layer of the face. I'm gonna set this makeup with my e.l.f. Cosmetics Perfect Finish HD powder. This one's specially made for camera wear. So for my YouTube videos and my Twitch streams, which I do every single day, Monday to Friday, by the way, 4 hours a day. Come join me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Stef Sanjati, link in the description. I'm streaming Avowed right now, and I'm gonna be streaming it until we beat the game, and we will. Either way, looks great on camera. I'm gonna use this with this little tiny powder puff. We're going to focus that under the eye area where we have a lot of movement, as well as around the mouth where there's a lot of movement. And then I will lightly dust that same powder across the face, finish that off. Now it's time for the contouring, and like I said, I've been using powder contour lately, and the reason is that the shades available in this palette are a lot more gray, more taupe, than the warmer contour bronzer liquid I was using. And true contour is typically more on the taupe gray kind of side of things. If you're close in skin tone to me, the deeper you go, the shade will change a little bit. It might be warmer, it might stay cool and just be very deep. It depends on your skin. But for me, a cool toned contour is essential. So I'm gonna use that really true beigey taupey contour shade here on my precision contour brush. This is a Mon-Fri M510 brush, and I'm going to use that to create the higher shadow for the cheekbone in small swirling motions, blending upward against the cheek, not going past the end of my eye with that shadow. And I just love how natural that looks in contrast to something warmer. Same thing along the jawline for extra definition. Just keeping it nice and tight to that jawline and blending gently in that localized area to increase the shadow. I've also been enjoying doing a little bit of contour above my eyebrow at the temple, right at this point where I reach the highest point of my brow, to create this lifted effect up here. because if it recedes here, that means this is a little bit more prominent. To contrast those contours, I'm using actually an e.l.f. Cosmetics Halo Glow Pressed Powder in the shade Light Neutral. It's got a small bit of coverage, and I'm applying it in contrast to the contour sort of, you know, right below this temple point here, as well as right below the cheekbone, right below that contour. And that's just to increase the contrast and the effectiveness. I'm also brushing it along the top side of the contour. And then we're gonna blend that out with just a regular, the same powder brush I used to set the foundation in the first place, just to soften those edges. Now we're gonna do some work on the nose, and I'm gonna use that same palette, same lighter contour color with the brush I have always been using for contour. Normally with liquid product, I'm just gonna use it with powder product. So we've got this more sculpty side where it's stiff and short, and then we've got the more blendy side where we can blend it out after. I'm just going to tap this product right along the nose to place these shadows really specifically and widen them out as they reach the top here. And then I will do a similar widening at the bottom, and I'm gonna go right underneath as well. I'm gonna switch to that blending side and just gently run that along the contour, soften those edges, and blend so that it's not too harsh. And to contrast the nose contour, I'm taking the same skin tone face powder and just going right along the sides of that new shadow to tighten them, make them look more natural, and a little bit down the center as well. Just soften it up. So we have definition, but it's not too overpowering. Next, we're going to dive into some blush. As you can see, I've got almost no color in my complexion. It's all just skin and shadow. So I'm gonna jump into one of my favorite NARS Cosmetics blushes. This is their talc-free powder blush in the shade Thrill. Look at that gorgeous, gorgeous soft pink. It is super light, and I feel like this color works really, really well with the Avowed color palette. I'm just gonna dance this along the top of my cheekbone with a nice big fluffy blush brush. It's such a fair blush that it's not going to overpower unless I go in really, really hard with it. But as you can see, it's bringing a nice soft pink into that cheekbone region. One of the things that I find makes Avowed so immersive and so enchanting is the incredible use of color in their world, in their design, even in the way that you do combat, some of the abilities you use, and the way that the Dreamscourge, sometimes when it shows up, are things related to the Dreamscourge. And I haven't finished the story yet, so I don't know exactly what's going on here. But there's this prismatic color, and it's like this sheen of white with these rainbow, like pink and turquoise and blue that kind of shimmers through it. It's beautiful. I'm pretty sure it has something to do with the Dreamscourge. And that prismatic color palette is just incredible. I'm gonna call to that in a few ways throughout the look. But first, we're gonna deepen this blush using a second NARS Cosmetics talc-free powder blush in the shade Dominant. It's a deeper pink. It's almost like a hot pink. And I'm gonna dance that along the cheekbone as well, but closer to the contour and to the back of my head towards my hairline. Not so much onto the eye area like we did with Thrill. So a little bit tighter to the back of the blush. We have a sort of hot pink towards the back that then lightens into this really soft, pale pink, really pastel. Now that we have our base all elegant and gorgeous, we're gonna dive into some of the fun parts here. I'm gonna use a paintbrush for the majority of this part of the look, and this paintbrush is gonna get a ton of use. So before we get into some of the more intricate graphic stuff, I'm gonna do some freckles underneath of that to create some dimension on the skin and make my skin look a little bit more lived in. To get the freckles, I'm gonna be using an e.l.f. Cosmetics Liquid Camo Bronzer and Contour Duo, like the 2-in-1 kind of product. This is the shade Medium, so it's a kind of a medium brown on the paintbrush, and I'm just gonna dot the freckles onto my skin, especially on the high points. One thing about freckles, it's that they are expressed and brought out of the skin through sun exposure, and typically the sun hits the high points of the face more. If we spend a ton of time outside, it'll just kind of be everywhere. Depends on your genetics as well. Some people just have freckles. But I'm gonna dance the freckles mostly along the high points of the face with this little paintbrush, even into the temple, above the brow, tapping those dots on, those freckles on, and then I'm gonna tap them out with my finger to create a more natural finish for the freckles. I just find it photographs really beautifully. It looks really nice. I do this with almost every single look. And I'll bring some of these as well across the middle of the face, even over the nose. All right, the freckles are done. Again, we don't want this to be too prominent. We're going to be going over it anyway with some other stuff, but I just love to do this. It's always something that I incorporate. Next, I'm going to do a little bit of highlighter, and I have my all-time favorite highlighter here. I'm so glad I have this again. I did a little Sephora trip recently, and I grabbed that color corrector, that setting spray, and this highlighter, a couple of the things that I got. This is the Fenty Beauty All Over Diamond Veil in the shade How Many Carats? Exclamation mark. It's the most incredible diamond sort of color. And the thing is, this to me looks a lot like that prismatic rainbow refraction that we see in the Dreamscourge, which is why I'm choosing to use this highlighter today. Also because it's bomb AF. I'm grabbing it on a brush. You want to be really light-handed with this, not only because it's intense, but it's also expensive. This thing was 58 Canadian dollars. You don't want to be ripping your finger in here and rubbing it all over. You want to be very sparing with it because she's expensive, okay? As she should be. She's really, really nice. So I've got that on my fluffy cheek brush, and I'm going to dance that right along the top of the cheekbone. You can immediately see that diamond refraction come through. Do you see that? That's incredible. My goodness. Blending that softly out along the cheekbone. The reason I'm adding this highlight below the graphic art we're going to do in a little bit is because I want those lines in that graphic art to look like it's growing on top of the skin. If we were to put this on top of it, it would create the look that our skin is on top of the lines instead. So to maintain the look of it growing on top of the skin, the shine of the skin should be underneath. Thinking about layers. I'm mostly concentrating that highlight on the cheekbones, but I've added a little bit to my chin, to the tops of my forehead here, along the temples, and I'm gonna add the tiniest amount down the bridge of my nose. I wanna be so light-handed with this though, so I'm gonna use a smaller brush, and I'm gonna really delicately just dab it along the bridge, a tiny bit right on the tip, and hopefully that's not overpowering. We're gonna hop over to eyes now. We're gonna take a break from the skin. That art, that graphic design is gonna come later. What we're gonna do to start the eyes is actually use an eyelid primer. You know I've been on the same eyelid primer for a while, but I have diverged a little bit. I went out and I grabbed the Mon-Fri eyelid primer instead, and this thing is crazy. I find that the texture of it is thicker than the e.l.f. one I've been using, but it provides a beautiful result and a great blend on the surface. It's considerably more expensive. The e.l.f. one does just a fine job. I have no complaints about it. Something about the way this sits though, I have a feeling if I had really oily skin or oily eyelids, this would give me a better result because it has a grip and a mattifying feeling to it that I think would be really great if I experienced a lot of sweat or oiliness or creasing in the eye area. I don't experience that with the more affordable e.l.f. eyelid primer, but I just wanted to try something different, and I've liked this one so far. I've used it for every single Avowed look I've done over the past week or so, because I've been doing a few to experiment and practice this, and it's been awesome to use. With that across the eyelid area, we're going to dive into a few palettes. Two of the hero shades of the eyes are going to be coming from this Matte About Hue ColourPop palette. This thing's beautiful. Look at these shades. Tell me you can't, oh, you can do anything with this. I love it. Beautiful quality to the shadows as well. I'm beginning with a flat eyeshadow application brush, and I'm going to this Got Iced, really pale blue shade up here. And this, I'm going to concentrate on the inner half of my eyelid, carving out a nice, strong line along the crease. And now I'm going into the next blue shade right below that. This is noticeably more turquoise in it, more green to this blue. The shade's called Biker, and that's going to sit right behind the super pale, almost eggshell blue, the robin egg kind of color, right behind that in the outer third of the eye. And I'm going to start establishing that winged shadow shape that I love doing and start the blend between the two blues really gently. So we have a nice transition there. And again, I'm making sure to create that sort of triangular shape in the back so that we can really pull this shadow backwards as we continue to build on top. Next, I'm going to introduce a green, a dark bluey green here called Kelp. I'm grabbing that on a small eyeshadow smudging brush, so something more precise, where I can go right along the edge of this blue and tap that Kelp shadow to create a deeper edge. And I'm going to bring that down sort of towards the first third of the eye, not all the way down, just about there, as well as along the edge of the other shadows to create this nice depth here. I'm going to follow the line at my waterline here, how it goes under the eye. I'm going to bring that same Kelp shadow down just along the lower lash line to start working in that area as well. And now to begin the blending process, I'm going to go back to Biker here on a nice fluffy crease blending brush. This is a new one I got the other day. It is the Pro Crease 19. This is the Sephora brush, the Pro Crease 19 Sephora brush. I really like this. It's the perfect size to get a really nice soft blend right along the crease. So I'm using that Biker shadow, which is again the sort of medium bluey, greeny blue, not the bluey green. And I'm blending against the kelp with this, outward from that darkest green point in this sort of triangle smoked out dimension all along that edge. We're going to continue building from here. I'm going back into the kelp shadow now on that same blending brush, and I'm going to blend that into the back of my eyelid to get rid of any sort of harsh lines that have been created between the kelp and the Biker shadows. Next, I'm going back into Got Iced on that same really light blending brush, and we're gonna go right along the outside edge of this back triangle. So we're introducing that pale blue with that blending brush, and we're gonna bring this not too high, but we're gonna bring it backwards onto the cheekbone and temple, focusing on the blend out from that darker green and blue, almost like a mask coming across the eye area here. The reason for this is in the game, you can choose a variety of what are called godlike features. In the Avowed universe of Aora, which is the same in-game universe from games Pillars of Eternity 1 and 2, a godlike is somebody that in the womb was touched or blessed, or you could maybe say cursed, by a god and given a portion of their power. And one of the significant story hooks for Avowed is that you are a godlike of unknown patronage. Like, you don't know which deity blessed you, and nobody else actually can tell from looking at you, which is unusual. Normally, the godlikes in this world take on a physical feature that is almost a signature of their god. So a fire godlike of the fire god would have fire on them. The god of light, they would appear perhaps golden skinned or have glowing golden eyes, something like that. But your godlike has fungal growths all over your body, or all over your face typically, or up in your hair. And the thing is, there's only one god, the god of nature, that could maybe be related to, but it's not quite. That god typically has more animalistic kind of features that are given, not fungus. The big question, one of the big questions in the game as it relates to the wider plot is, what god were you blessed by or cursed by? And at the point of the story that I'm at right now, it's kind of hard to tell whether that's a good or a bad thing. It's kind of hard to tell if the voice that you speak with when you arrive to the living lands is your patron god, benevolent or malevolent, what its goals are. But you have conversations with this patron deity throughout your experience, and you get to know it. And I think that the choices that you make through your adventure will determine whether you side with this deity or you don't, or if it's a deity at all. We don't even know. I don't even know yet. Please, no spoilers in the comments. I'm so excited to continue uncovering this story with the stream community over at my Twitch channel as we progress through the story. I'd love it if you join me for that. It's so much fun. Regardless, the reason I'm bringing this shadow back onto my temple region back here is because I want to emulate the shape of the fungal growths that you can choose for your godlike. One of the different options that you can do, at least. There's so many. The character that I've chosen to play has this giant wooden growth over the top of their face. You can't even see their eyes. I just thought that was really neat. But some of the other options are like coral or fungus kind of growing out of the top of your face. Some of it are these like coral fungus flowers that grow over your face as well. But some of them just have this sort of winged shape across the eye area. Similar to how we've blended this eyeshadow really far back on the back of our eye, we're going to bring it down low in the front. I'm actually going to add a little bit of my eyeshadow primer just to that little area, just to make sure that we have a good base for it, because I don't want it to get too muddy with my skin. I want to make sure it goes on nice and bold. Going back to our original flat eyeshadow brush in the shade Got Iced, I'm going to bring that low in the front, down almost in the shape of like fangs maybe, down low. To mirror this up blend, we're going to do a down blend. And I'm blending it backwards here. And then I'm going to go back to the Biker eyeshadow and blend that inward against it to create some more depth and dimension. I'll visit that blending brush as well and use some more of that Biker eyeshadow to soften out this under eye area with some of that darkness. I'm also bringing Biker down in the front along the same trajectory as my crease, right against that really pale Got Iced blue without leaving too much harsh line. So I'm going to go back to the blending brush and just dance that up and down there so that it softens out towards the nose. And next we're going to add a little bit of eyeliner. So another product I recently picked up is the Urban Decay 24/7 Glide-On Pencil in the shade Freak. It's this gorgeous pale green, kind of turquoisey pale green. I'm going to use this pencil to line my waterline with this really gorgeous minty, almost turquoisey green. Bring some light into the area and unify this with this sort of fungal color around my eyes. And I'm actually bringing it just below my waterline in the front here, right onto my skin, to bring some of that sort of reflective color, because this has almost a metallic sheen to it. And then what I'll do is return to that Got Iced shadow and just go right over it. So we're bringing that brightness through and we're tinting it a little bit more on the blue side, but we're going to keep the green undertone since it's present below. We're looking a little wild. We're going to take a break from eyeshadow and we're going to move on to eyeliner. We want to be so light-handed with this. If you do your eyeliner too big, it's going to obscure all this amazing work. So we want to be really light because we're using a black. We want to use a really thin line. This is the e.l.f. Cosmetics H2O Proof Liquid Eyeliner Pen. So it's waterproof. And I like this pen because it's really fine, so I can get a pretty fine liner out of it if I'm focused. So I'm going to lock in here and try to get a really tight eyeliner finish. I'm not going to go too thick with this line. Follow the line that my waterline makes at the back, going upward. I feel like I've kind of messed up these wings already, but something really important is outside of these giant wings, which I did want a large wing, but I'm going to tighten them up. I'm going to work with these because this is botched. Right along the lash line though, I'm doing just like the thinnest possible line, which is exactly what we want. I wanted big wings in the back, but this is a bit sloppy. So let's tidy it up. I've patched it up. Do I reveal how? What I did is I used some of my Makeup Forever Flash palette, which I'm going to be using a lot of in a minute, my little paintbrush. And I just went into the turquoise color since I'm using so much turquoise shadow in the area already. I painted on top of the liner where I wanted to conceal it. And then I just went back in on top of that with my eyeshadow colors and I blended it out a little bit more. And I think it looks exactly how it should. Something you want to keep in mind when you're doing dramatic looks or really effort intense looks like this is what does my face do that pisses me off that I can't control? And for me, that is my eyes will water in the front and ruin like really cool eyeliner that I put there. So I'm going to give it a break so my eyes can kind of relax a little bit before I continue. And I'm going to do my brows instead. I'm going to try to keep these really natural and fluffy. Just going to be a little tricky because I've just run out of my shade of brow pencil, so I've got to use one shade darker than I would like to. Keeping them looking kind of fair and not too dark is going to be tricky. So I'm going really, really light with my brush strokes here. This is the e.l.f. Cosmetics Ultra Precise Brow Pencil in the shade Neutral Brown. Normally I use taupe, but taupe ran out last night, girl. With the eyebrows done, I'm going to try to go back to the eyes and hopefully they don't water too much. So I'm using that same pen liner. I'm going to do a really nice thin line coming down in the front and then connecting back to my waterline to create that inner cat eye that I love. Okay, I think I nailed it. I'm not going to touch it anymore. No more touch. Jesus, Steph. Oh my goodness. I'm going to wrap up the eyes with some mascara, some false lashes and stuff, because if I try to go in on that after I do all the painting, I'm going to risk smudging it with touching my face and stuff. So I'm going to curl my lashes, apply some mascara, and do some falsies on top. I'm doing something different today. I'm using two mascaras. This is something that e.l.f. Cosmetics global makeup artist and gamer-in-chief Anna Bynum taught me. I co-host shows with her twice a week on e.l.f. Cosmetics Twitch channel. That's twitch.tv/elfu. I show up there on Mondays and Wednesdays. And something she told me about was lash wardrobe or lash wardrobing. I'm not sure if that's what she would call it. The idea is basically to use two different mascaras to get the properties out of both of them. And so I'm starting with my e.l.f. Cosmetics Lash and Roll mascara. For the lower lash line, I'm only doing the sort of back half of my eyelashes. I'm leaving the front eyelashes alone. That's to enhance this sort of gap here that I have. I just think it creates a cool effect. And then my second layer is going to be the Lash Extender Mascara, also e.l.f. Cosmetics. The reason why I'm using this one is because this adds little fibrous extensions to your lashes, so it creates a visible lengthening effect. It's not just the black mascara in the tube, it also has these little fibers that will create a subtle extension. It's not crazy. I want to do a fresh pair of lashes because I feel like this look deserves something fresh, but this band is too long for me. So I'm going to cut it in half actually, but I'm going to use the larger side of the lash band. When I do a more natural look, I might use the smaller, like the shorter side of the lash band to create the more natural look, but I'll use the larger one, and I'm just going to place it right at the back for an extreme little lift there. Now just a little bit of Duo Lash Adhesive along the band. We're going to let that get tacky, and then we're going to apply the lash. While we wait for this to dry and while I do my lash application, I want to talk to you more about the gameplay of Avowed. First and foremost, there are 4 companions that you get to join your party in the game. Think of them like Mass Effect style companions, where they've got a lot of personality and depth to them. They're not romanceable like Mass Effects were, but they have so much character. They're so likable. So far in my playthrough, I've seen the first 2, which are Marius and Kai, and I am enchanted with these characters because they're so well written. They've got a real personality to them. Kai, for example, has this hurt from his past, but he's always thinking about second chances, and the Living Lands to him represents a place where people go for second chances. And so he's running away from, in a way, or he's taking responsibility for, it's hard to tell at this point in the story, his past mistakes and the things that he regrets. And he really appreciates when the main character provides people with second chances. You can choose to not do that though. You can choose to screw people over, and he might have a different reaction to you. And Marius is this dwarf character who is very standoffish and defensive and very closed off, in contrast to Kai's really open-heartedness. And the 2 characters have really great banter together. It's just awesome. And I can't wait to see the 3rd and 4th companions and how they fit into that puzzle. So the companions are an awesome part of this game. But beyond that, the combat is something I think about a lot as well. You've got a lot of options for how you approach combat. You can be a melee fighter. You can be a guns and bows kind of character. You can be a spellcaster. But you can also do any mixture of these things. And it's done in a way that's really cool, where let's say you like the guns and the melee combat. Okay, you can dual wield pistols, you can dual wield melee weapons, or have a big 2-handed melee weapon, or you can have a 1-handed sword and a pistol, a spear and a pistol, or you can switch between melee dual wielding and a rifle, or you can have a 2-handed weapon and switch to 2 pistols, or you can have a shield and a pistol too, which is a really cool combo. You can do anything really, any kind of combination you desire out of the options. You can even have a pistol and a spell book. It's incredible. The depth that they provide to the way you can play your character, I really, really like. Personally, in my playthrough on stream, I'm doing a spear and a 1-handed sword, and then I've got dual wield pistols that I switch to. And the way I'm building my character is with really high dexterity, which means my attack speed is really fast, which is great for dual wielding weapons. And so I charge into battle and I swing my weapons around and then I dodge out and I come back in. It's a lot of fun. The combat is really dynamic. It's really fast paced. I have so much fun with it. I look forward to going and fighting. Sometimes when I'm spending a lot of time in the city talking to people, going through conversations and dialogue, which is awesome in Obsidian RPGs, it's the same for Avowed, I find myself getting excited to go out and just hit things because the combat is genuinely fun. I want to go do it. It isn't something that you do sort of to achieve the story. It's something that's actually fun to do. It feels like there's a way to get better at it. Also, with the weapons and armor, you can upgrade them. And there's a bit of a crafting system there where if you're struggling to meet the challenge of an area, you can go back to camp and you can upgrade your equipment at this little workbench. And you choose really where you're investing those resources and it pays off really quickly. The power curve in the game is great because unlike a lot of modern RPGs, the world doesn't scale to you. It doesn't scale up to meet you and it doesn't scale down to make it easier for you. So the power growth that you experience, you actually feel it. And I think that's something that's been missing from a lot of modern RPGs where the world scales to you so you can do anything at any time. In theory, that's cool, but I feel like it misses out on the power growth where your character feels like they actually become stronger. And the last time I've experienced something like that was like Elden Ring, for example, does that really well. It doesn't make things easier for you. You have to rise to the occasion. I wouldn't say this matches an Elden Ring level of difficulty, but that lack of scaling I appreciate that. And it makes the crafting system feel meaningful, which is awesome. Because if everything scaled to me to be easier, I would never have to upgrade my equipment. I would never have to seek out those more powerful items. And there's a lot of actually really cool, unique, powerful weapons and armors that you can collect that have special bonuses that you can then enhance further at the enchanting station in your campsite. So there's a lot of really cool character building customization that you can do from an RPG perspective, both in terms of combat and gameplay, but also in terms of conversations. So the way you choose your character background at the beginning in the character creator, you can choose to be like a mystic or a noble or a war hero or kind of a woodsy scout character. And based on which one of those backgrounds you choose for your character, you're going to have different dialogue options. But you'll also have different dialogue options based on the skills that you invest in. So a character with a lot of resolve will often say things like either intimidate people or, encourage and inspire people, depending on the context of the situation. Somebody with a lot of constitution will have options in dialogue to like brush off like the poison that hurt them, or like, oh yeah, I'm healthy as a horse. If somebody's like, are you okay? It depends on the way you've built your character. You will respond to people differently. It's really cool. And in turn, those people will respond to you differently. So I could go on forever about this game, but if you want to see more about it, please come by my stream. That's twitch.tv/Stef Sanjati. I'm live Monday to Friday, 4 hours every day. And actually yesterday, as of recording this video on the Saturday recently, I did a 9-hour stream, which I try not to do because I can burn out, but this game, I just cannot put it down. I'm so excited to play it, and it came out like just this past weekend. I was like, okay, I've got to just play it all day on stream, and I did. I played it during the review period before the game was released, and I wanted to catch up with that gameplay because I purposely didn't go past the first region in my review play, which took me like 15 to 20 hours to do everything in there, and I really took my time and enjoyed it. But this game is dense with content. It's very dense and it's well made, and I'm excited because very soon I'll be getting into stuff I haven't seen during my review gameplay, so I'll be reacting to the game in a very authentic way because I haven't seen it past that point. So I can't wait. I'm so excited. I just talked so much about how much I love this game. My mouth hurt. Woo! I needed a water break. Now that the eyes are done, lashes and all, I'm gonna go ahead with the more artsy-fartsy bit of this look, and I'm going to use that Makeup Forever Flash palette to achieve this. This is basically a bunch of really high-quality face paint. It's really great. I'm going to start with the turquoise to map some things out, because the turquoise being a little bit lighter, it's a little bit more forgiving. If I don't like something, I can kind of change it with the pink shade later. So what I'm going to do is begin actually towards the front of my brow, and I'm going to start creating almost like roots patterns, or even like a mycelium network. The Dreamscourge is an infection that infects plant life and animal life, just life in general. It isn't the life itself. So you might see mushrooms or trees, for example, in the world. How you know it's infected with Dreamscourge is if it's got that root mycelium spread going through it. So I'm gonna drag this in that pattern, starting at the front of my brow, because I want it to be really dominant through the middle of my face. So I'm gonna start around here. And I'm gonna start just dragging it backwards in these like creaky shapes. And I'm gonna define both sides at once because I want them to have a similar profile at the front of my forehead. So they kind of come back and meet at a similar place. I think this one's a little bit higher up on my forehead, so I'm actually going to create a separate branch here that comes a little bit higher. And maybe again, a little bit higher here. There we go. And just to match again, I'm gonna branch off and do a sort of second. Okay, this is gonna be meticulous and slow work. So I'm gonna lock in and do a bunch of these veins throughout my temple region and then down, honestly, like through my cheeks and jaw. So it's gonna be a lot. We're just gonna keep going. I think that's a great start. Let's go on the other side now. How many lines did I do? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's 1, 2, 3. Now that we have the face turquoise mapped out on both sides, I'm going to start bringing it down the neck. And I had this very specific vision of it almost just draping over the skin, right? Because if we're thinking about an infection that's growing over the skin, it would, with the gravity, it would just kind of drape down here. So rather than doing a really tight kind of crinkle, I'm going to follow that line, but mostly go straight down. And we'll do the same number of lines on both sides around the same points. So from here, a slight wiggle, but mostly straight down. And is this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines, just like 5 lines out of here. And then I'm gonna do a similar thing going across my shoulders and down onto my kind of arm, my upper arm. So I'm gonna follow those lines, do a similar sort of root pattern down onto the shoulder. And then we're gonna fill it in with more of that stunning mycelium network. So I did the original 5 lines. I'll do the same on the other side. It's trickier to paint on this side because I'm right-handed, but I'm gonna make it work. So I'll find that farthest back. You know what? I'm gonna clip my hair out of the way better. And then okay, I've got the original 5 lines figured out on both sides. Now I'm going to try to add more dimension and more lines in between them all. Something tricky is that this flash palette paint is really transferable while it's wet. We're gonna do something about that later, but while I'm working with it, I have to be very careful not to like touch it with my arms or my hands or like touch my face with it, because I will mess up the beautiful line work that I'm working on. One tip I have for you in creating these lines is as you're dragging the brush along your skin, look for the points where the line will like kink or have a corner basically, and then make a branch off of that. So, you know, if I follow this line, maybe there's one here. And if I'm following this line, maybe right there it branches. The best way to go about this, I would say, would be trust your gut and let the brush go where it goes. Now, like I said, this paint is very transferable. So how do we prevent that from becoming a nightmare later? I have tested this and I can say I was able to do a pattern like this on my chest, and I put a sweater on after and I wore it for like 6 hours. And when I took that sweater off later, it didn't transfer to my clothes or even smudge. And here's how I made that work. First of all, I've got a tissue and I'm gonna just tap that tissue on top of it, just really gently. We're not gonna move very much. We're just gonna tap it and then we're gonna lift it. And as you can see, I've got a little bit of the excess paint, maybe you can't quite see it, it's very subtle, on that tissue. And we have to use a different tissue every time so that we don't then press that paint into a new area. So we're just gonna do this almost like you would blot your lips or blot oil off of the skin. We're gonna blot these branch patterns really carefully. You don't want to move the tissue once it touches the skin. We're going to just blot it so we get the extra paint off of the skin, and we're going to do the same thing for the roots on the face. A big risk factor that you might not think of right away is your hair. If your hair is touching your face and it's touching that paint, you might actually stain your hair with this paint, so you want to be careful. This is face safe, like it does wash off, this Makeup Forever Flash palette, but you know, just minimize the risk, right? Not even just to your hair, but just to the work you've done. You want to preserve this, it's sick. Once you feel you've sufficiently blotted the first layer of our root network here, we're breaking out the one size spray, okay? And this is what I used that stopped this from transferring onto my clothes. I don't know what's in this, it's insane. Your makeup still comes off at the end of the day, but it does not move before then. So we're gonna use this same spray to set this in place. Just a light layer. Once that dries down, we'll go in with our next color because we're not done yet. Using that same paintbrush, I'm now going into the dark blue color in the Flash palette, and we're going to use this to create depth on specific parts of our root or mycelium network in specific areas. So for example, I'm going to add the smallest amount of dark blue to a couple of these branches, but not a whole lot. Like we're going really light with this. We're not using nearly as much of the blue. as we did the turquoise. I would say that's enough for that side of the face, for sure. And then on the other side, we want to place that dark blue in the similar sort of position to where it is on the other. We want to try to mirror this all the way through to some extent. Now we're going to move on to the neck and the shoulders and the chest, adding a little bit of blue here and there. Something I'm being really careful about is to not create new lines with the blue just to add to the ones that exist already. Think of it either as like natural variation in the roots or shadows and dimension on the roots, since they're kind of a rounded shape. Realistically, a root would be. It's almost like a tracing activity at this point. And now what we have is we should just see that pattern we did originally, but in a little bit more clarity, a little bit more detail. It should be more visible for us. And just like before, we're going to blot and we're going to set. By the time we're in like 4 layers of this, I'm sure the makeup's not going anywhere. We're going to do one final thing with the art, and that is add a contrasting color. And the complementary and absolute contrast to the turquoise and blue is like a fuchsia, like a bright, bright pink. So we're going to go into the fuchsia paint in that same palette. And now we've got to decide how we want to do this. This is tricky. I think drawing very thin pink lines in a similar way to the blue is the ticket. So I'm going to experiment with that, and we're going to see how it looks. I like it. Thing with the pink is because it's so high contrast to the turquoise, it's going to be really visible. So we want to do just the smallest amount of the pink, like where we apply it, a really thin line. We want to be very careful. If I showed you the uncut footage of me doing this painting, all you would hear is my heavy breathing and my dog snoring. I'm sure I'm cutting this quite a bit. For your context, the amount of time I've spent doing this at this point is almost an hour. I was done the face at around an hour into my recording. We're approaching 2 hours, which means this will take some time if you're doing it at this level of detail, but I think this is so sick. And again, we're going to blot. Now we want to be really careful this time because that pink will definitely smudge very visibly if we don't blot it carefully. It almost looks like I did this with markers. I love the way that shows up. I would say we're done with the mycelium, so I'm going to do one more pass with the One Size setting spray. Let's talk about some finishing touches while this dries down, and I've got a really cool product in mind for the lips, but let's first tackle some finishing touches on the eyes. I'm going into my ColourPop palette. This is actually Fade into Hue, and there's this blue glitter here called Kaleidoscope, which I think is a perfect name to go with that sort of prismatic effect from the Dreamscourge. And I'm kind of pressing that really gently right into my eyelid here at the front. So we get this big pocket of this glittery element. Just laying that right on the skin in that area. And I'll also place that gently right below my inner corner wing and let that sort of find its home there. Now we're going to look at our lips, and obviously we've got a lot going on here. So I'm going to do a very neutral lip. I'm going to use my e.l.f. Cosmetics O Face Satin Lipstick in the shade Dirty Talk on a little lip brush, so I get a really precise application of what is basically my natural lip color. But this way I have a ton of control over the exact dimension of my lips. But now 2 little extra steps. I'm going to lighten my lip color using this e.l.f. Cosmetics Pout Clout Lip Plumping Pen in the lightest peach shade. So I just run a little bit of that through the center of the lip. You can see that kind of lightens and pales out the lip color a little bit. And then I'm going to add something really cool. This is another e.l.f. lip product. It's the Glow Reviver Lip Oil in the Glimmer Finish version. And the Glimmer Finish lip oils have this incredible like disco glitter effect. This is the shade Opology Tour, like Opology Tour, like an influencer. And it is an incredible like cool toned glitter. It's just, I can't believe it. It's so pretty. I'm gonna lay that on thick. So we have that incredible cool tone glitter reflectiveness. All that said, let's get our jewelry back on and close this out and talk about it. I really hope you like the look. This was so much fun for me to do. Even the neck chain must return. I have faith that the one size setting spray is going to keep these beautiful Dreamscourge veins nice and safe. Look at how that pairs nicely with the jewelry. I'm obsessed. As much as my hair is looking pretty fire today as well, I'm going to keep it off of my shoulders so you can see all this awesome work. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you liked this look. I hope it's useful to you, or you found this video relaxing or inspiring or something. If you'd like to see me play through Avowed, please join me on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Stef Sanjati. I'm live Monday to Friday, 4 hours every day, and sometimes I add in extras. So come hang out with me. Come see the Avowed adventure. It's genuinely so cool. Avowed is also now available on Game Pass as of today to everybody that has a Game Pass subscription. You can also get it anywhere you get your video games, whether that's in a game store or Steam or Xbox, wherever. Let me know what you think of this look. Let me know what you think of Avowed. I really enjoyed putting this together for you. I love coming across like a new inspiration and then doing like 50 versions and bringing the best one to you here on YouTube. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe as well for more gaming inspired beauty content, or the usual, I'll sometimes do just straight beauty knowledge videos as well. I just want to make cool stuff with you. I just want to be an artist. I want to be creative, and I'm really having a lot of fun getting in touch with those roots of mine again, just like the roots in the living lands of the Dreamscourge. Ooh, themes. Until next time, just remember, you can make anything beautiful, anything you want. Just take your feelings and inject them into the world with that sense of creativity. You'll make beauty everywhere you go. I hope I'll see you again soon. Thank you for joining me today. Have a lovely day, afternoon, evening, whatever time it is. I appreciate you. I'll see you soon here on Twitch and on Instagram. Thank you.